What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Bills Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight, as always, is Luka. Luka, so far this week, the Bills are undefeated.
Oh, what a feeling, right? It's like it feels like a bye week, and yet there's a game tomorrow as we're recording this. If you're listening to this, it's later tonight, or it already happened technically, and you just came in afterwards to see our thoughts afterwards. But it's nice. It's nice when you have a enjoyable, relaxing Sunday to just view all the different games and understand that the Bills themselves are not going to affect our emotions in any sort of way because it's still to come.
And we are in the unique position here on Bills Chat of doing a pre-game show as opposed to a post-game show, because normally our Sunday night recording, Monday morning release puts us right there at the post-game show slot. But that is not the case this week, as we are still waiting for the Bills 7:15 kickoff with the Atlanta Falcons. And yes, you heard me right, folks. Monday Night Football, 7:15 kickoff. So if you're expecting to come home and watch it 8:15 or 8:20, whatever the normal start time is, that is not the case tomorrow night, because there are two Monday night games. The other one is the Bears and the Commanders. So just be alert, be warned, get home from work a little earlier than you need to, get dinner ready, get everybody settled at home. And if you're not going to the game, which if you're not in Atlanta, you're not, get ready to watch some early football. The good news is everybody should get to bed at a decent time, unless the Bills give us a reason to not be able to sleep. All right, Luca. I want to talk about a few things tonight on our preview show. We're obviously going to talk about some matchups we like, how we think the Bills are going to do in this game, how we think they're going to do rebounding off of the first loss of the season last week against the Patriots, some of the new injuries that happened this week, a couple of big names going to IR for the Bills, and what that could mean going forward. But I think before we do anything, let's go to where the money is. And by that, I mean Vegas. Right now, Vegas has the Bills at 3.5 point favorites. We know that gambling and point spreads are your thing. You're always in tune with the way the line moves, where the money is, where the bets are. What does that line say to you? And what does that line specifically say to you about what the smarties are, or the sharks, or the guys with the guys or gals with the big money that really influence the lines are saying about this game?
Says a couple things. So on the simple hand of this, this is a really weird line, because the other thing that people might understand is the Bills are a very popular team for the general bettor. Just in general, like, really doesn't matter the line. I mean, we saw the Bills as a heavily bet team, even with the spread against the Saints earlier this season. And that, I mean, when you see a team 14.5 point favorites, like you just saw today with the Bengals and Joe Flacco in his first start playing the Packers, like that's just a lot of points. And in the NFL, the general person should be taking the 14.5, but yet the Bills are one of those teams that are very popular against the spread, regardless what that spread is. So on one hand, it's that, but the other hand is getting a home team plus the hook is a very enticing thing. So it becomes a little bit of a confusing line. This line to me, though, screams one where the sharps, I love when you say sharks. The sharps are essentially, um, they seem to be hammering the Bills. And I say that too because you really haven't seen the line move as much, even though you see tickets coming in on the Bills -3.5 and -4.5. Even I think DraftKings right now still shows it at -4.5. The general public is at 80% bet on the Bills. Um, it's a line where it's very rare that you get a team as good as the Bills with a defending MVP quarterback, although it might not be a two-time MVP based on another performance that just happened today. But it's rare that you get a team like that and they're a short favorite, even on the road. Like the Bills are the kind of team where they're definitely a step or two above the Falcons, and under center, it's a massive gap. To get them at only -3.5, it seems like an opportunity that's too good to be true. And like even something you're referencing is a green line that we utilize through PFF, which generally shows where it depicts value and where sharps might be finding value. It's showing that the Bills -3.5 is a very valuable line based on a lot of different metrics and stuff. So it's just one of those ones where it the line has a very diverse story to it, but ultimately I do believe that the Sharps, and it's a rare one where the Sharps and the public are going to be on the Bills -3.5, because it's just one that you would fully expect a bounce back. And even if you don't get it in full motion there, 3.5 is just too short of a line when you have Josh Allen going against Michael Penix in the Falcons. Like that's too little amount of points to not be jumping all over.
You mentioned Michael Penix. We talked earlier this week on our, I put this out on Twitter. We talked a little bit about him on our live show on Wednesday. He's a good, not great young quarterback. We've seen a couple of these young quarterbacks really start to take off this year. Jaden Daniels last year kind of became a great young quarterback. I think Drake May is starting to ascend into that level of like maybe he's the next great young quarterback. We haven't seen that from Michael Penix. And there are some things about this Atlanta Falcons offense to like. They obviously have the two really good running backs in Bijan Robinson and Algier. Drake London is a high-end wide receiver. He was drafted in the top 10. He's very productive. Kyle Pitts, on the other hand, was a highly drafted tight end that has not been as productive. He is, I think, for lack of a better term, what a lot of people accuse Dalton Kincaid of being, which is not a good enough blocker to warrant the kind of coverage that tight ends generally are supposed to get. So he's being covered by cornerbacks, and he can't beat the cornerbacks. Dalton Kincaid has become a better blocker. Hasn't been an issue for him this year. If it's not Drake London in the passing game, Luka, who is it that really you're looking out for on the Falcons? And is it as simple as saying those dynamic running backs?
Yes, it absolutely is. I mean, in the receiving game, it to me would be a tier list of, and you'll see my hand here. So if you're listening, I apologize, but Drake London first, then Bijan Robinson, and then Kyle Pitts. And then after that, I mean, it's just other guys. Like they're just all that. Algier it feels like will very rarely be in that equation. So I wouldn't put Algier in the receiving kind of game. Algier's kind of meant to be that secondary punch in the ground game, of course. He very efficient, very low to ground, can keep his balance, bang out 2 to 3 yards when you truly need that to, get the chains moving and or get into the end zone. But when you have, what is it? Casey Washington, I believe. What's his name is out. So Casey Washington's going to be the guy that's probably filling in on the outside. You have Ray McLeod filling in on the slot. Those are just cogs in the machine kind of type of guys. They're not really impact players to the sense of needing to elevate your understanding of where they are on the field. The true checks, honestly, for this Bills defense, I would imagine all week has been number 5, Drake London, number 7, Bijan Robinson. You do need to know where, Kyle Pitts may be and everything, but at the same time, it's like, as you laid out perfectly, Kyle Pitts truly is just a big receiver that lines up at the tight end spot, but realistically, you should be able to manage him with a DB if needed. So, like, Kyle Pitts is the kind of individual that, in a rare circumstance with how things currently are with this Bills defense, I actually don't hate the Taron Johnson matchup on him, just because it feels like he should actually be able to be physical and athletic enough to keep up with a Kyle Pitts. I'd like to hope. I'm not. 2 years ago, I'd be a lot more confident in that fact, but right now, I would say it could still get by. It's just the receiving game for the Falcons really does lack true dynamic threats, because even in the sense of, and the last point I have is the sense of Drake London, as great as he might be in certain areas and whatnot, I don't call Drake London dynamic. I would call Drake London, kind of like a steady, reliable pass catcher. He's a guy, big frame, can high point the ball, truly grab it in traffic, do all the things that you want him to do. He's definitely a high end receiver in the sense of reliability, but I'm not sitting there terrified of his, let's say a stop and go route or anything else where he's going to double move someone and truly create separation and get away from Benford when it comes to that matchup. So I find it interesting. I find their pass game very interesting, and how they've constructed it is one where, okay, I can see where production comes from, but it feels as if you really gotta scratch and claw to get the production out of it. It's not exactly as pretty as some would like an offense to be in the pass game.
when you look at this Falcons, you talked about the weapons, right? And you mentioned Kyle Pitts. Bijan Robinson's obviously fantastic. I agree about Drake London. I feel like he's almost like a poor man's CD Lamb. And what I mean by that is
Whoa.
CD Lamb is one of the best receivers in football, but I think what Drake London lacks that CD Lamb has is the ability to catch a 10-yard pass and take it 80 yards to the house. He's a big body, he has good body control, and he's a target hog. He can move the chains for you, and he can have those big games. He's not Justin Jefferson, he's not Jamar Chase, he's not CD Lamb, but he plays the game sort of like a CD Lamb, where if you pepper him with targets, he can produce for you, but CD Lamb's going to do more with those targets. To give you an idea of what this Falcons wide receiver group looks like after Drake London, they have Drake London, who on the season and it's also important to know they've only played 4 games, so they did have their bye week already. Drake London has 37 targets for 24 catches for 269 yards. Very good. The next wide receiver is Darnell Mooney, who's going to be out tomorrow. 16 targets, 7 receptions for 79 yards. Okay, Luka, this is where we start to get weird. After Darnell Mooney, the guy who's going to be starting opposite Drake London is a former Buffalo Bills draft pick. It is Ray McCloud. And if you're thinking to yourself, wait, Ray McCloud, who was like a Bills gunner for like a half a season before the Bills trade him to Carolina? Yeah, that guy. And if you go a little bit further down the depth chart, you see David Sills. So when you look at it, Ray McCloud right now in the season has 14 targets. He has 6 receptions for 64 yards. And then David Sills has 2 targets, 1 reception for 9 yards. When you look at the Atlanta Falcons, Luka, they're not an explosive offense overall. Currently, according to Summer Sports, they rank 15th in the NFL in yards per play, 5.5, 22nd in EPA per pass, and 16th in EPA per rush. So middle of the pack offensively, below average when it comes to passing the ball. We have seen these Bills cornerbacks really struggle, and I think it was definitely on display Sunday night against the Patriots when it was Stephon Diggs who was eating mostly against Tre'Davious White, but also took turns on Christian Benford and whoever else found their way into the game. Can you see a scenario this week where the Bills essentially dedicate all of their resources, as much as makes sense, to Drake London, and then just dare the Falcons to beat them with somebody else in the passing game? And I say that knowing that at least according to fantasy sites, the Bills are the worst matchup for tight ends. So no matter what you think about Kyle Pitts, and keep in mind that's a small sample size. They haven't gone against George Kittle. They haven't gone against Travis Kelce. They haven't gone against Tucker Kraft. They haven't gone against Trey McBride. So when you talk about that, they haven't gone against Warren from the Colts. When you talk about matchups against tight ends, you really have to take into context who they've gone against. And it's really been Hunter Henry, and that's about it. Like Jawan Johnson would be the only notable one because Darren Waller wasn't there when they played the Vikings. And who did they even play? Oh, week 1, they played Mark Andrews, but he's been kind of toast. I would think my strategy for the Bills would be essentially all hands on deck in the secondary, keeping an eye on Drake London. Front 7, stop the run. Michael Penix is not going to do what Drake May did last week, Luka. Unless I'm mistaken, he is not going to beat you with his legs. And it feels like a pretty simple math formula of if Ray McCloud is the reason why I lose this game, I tip my cap.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with that kind of philosophy. And I would imagine McDermott's shown that he is truly the kind of guy where it's when you turn on the tape, you evaluate an offense that feels one dimension, has one dimension to it. And we're obviously talking specifically the pass game here, but ultimately it's one of those things where if we're talking about the pass game, you look at this team and you go, yeah, Drake London is truly the only threat consistently that should be able to get you. And oh my God, sorry, just spoiler alert. Anyone, first opening drive for the Lions, it looked like David Montgomery just threw a touchdown pass to Jared Goff. Yes, you're hearing that correct. David Montgomery to Jared Goff, but they're calling it for illegal motion because technically he was moving forward in his motion. Jared Goff, that is. And it almost didn't work because he couldn't catch the ball. I digress. In the sense of this, though, yeah, it should. They don't generally match up corner on receiver, truly. But at that same time, when you look at the difference between a Drake London and others, it's like I would like to see 47 lined up a little bit more regularly against Drake London. And on top of all of that, it should be a conceded effort where it's, hey, you're shifting safety help to that side every time. Let Christian Benford be a little bit more aggressive with him at the line of scrimmage and underneath, knowing that he has the help behind him to assist with anything if it were to get by him. Tighten those windows up, so on and so forth. It's a matchup that you get them into obvious passing downs. Two things need to be happening. You need your pass rush to be getting home, like always, but then also you're just always out there pre-snap recognizing where's number five, figure that out, get that going, and then from there you're good to go. So I sometimes it sounds ridiculous. I just want to say that, like, sometimes it just sounds ridiculous when you bring things up. Like, you look at this and it's like, can it be that simple? And then other times it really is just that simple. I mean, the Falcons are an absolute beautiful example of just, like, especially with the Darnell Mooney injury, it is truly just, where's number five? Figure it out, cover it up, give a little bit of help, and just let them beat you otherwise. Like, if Ray McLeod III is torching you up, that should also be a sign that you need to do something else in your secondary to firm it up a little bit. But hats off to the Falcons to making that work. With Michael Penix and Ray McLeod III, if that becomes the next, Brady to Moss connection in this world against us, so be it. Honestly, like, props to them to not kind of letting the temptation of going to their quote unquote guys not being there, and they're truly just exploiting what the Bills are inevitably letting them have a little bit. So it is that simple, truly. And all be all. The pass game should just be always shading over and recognizing where Drake London is.
In a lot of ways, it reminds you kind of the Jets. And I don't mean that stylistically, because when Justin Fields is your quarterback and Michael Penix is the other quarterback, the offenses stylistically are not going to be similar. And Michael Penix is a better thrower of the football than Justin Fields is. But when you play the Jets, it's a very, very concentrated target distribution. When they're passing the ball, they're looking for Garrett Wilson. Otherwise, they're going to hand the ball to an electric running back in Breece Hall, or they could throw it to him out of the backfield. And that is really where your eyes have to be on the Falcons. It is Drake London in the passing game, and then it is stopping the run, Bijan Robinson and Algier. Luka, we've seen this Bills team struggle to stop the run. There's a good news, bad news situation. Good news is Ed Oliver should be back for this game. That is very good news.
Love it.
Bad news is second-round pick TJ Sanders joins first-round pick Max Harrison on injured reserve. And Matt Milano is also out for this game, deemed week to week by Sean McDermott, which the good news for that is they have a bye week next week. So who knows how that looks after the bye week. I'm of the opinion, don't rush him back. Let's just get the most out of him we can when the weather gets cold and the playoffs come around the corner. But what do you think of the Bills' chances of stopping the Falcons' run, even though yards per carry, offensive average, it's not top of the NFL? Skill-wise, their running back is right up there with any running back you want to mention as being a great one. Even if they know it's coming, what's your confidence level that this Bills defense can play one man, one gap, everybody do your job football, which is something we have not seen from this team outside of week 2 against the Jets?
Let me answer this question here, Josh, with a little bit of a sidetrack stat, or just friendly betting advice. I am not telling you what to do here, but I'm just giving
This is going to make me sad, isn't it, Luka?
This is going to I'm just putting this in the space so you understand what's out there as potentially a nice little find. Bijan Robinson's all-purpose yards, 150 plus, currently is sitting at plus 300, 3-1. That is a wonderful number to be getting there. I would say that will be in my, I will be holding that ticket come tomorrow. That is not me rooting against the Bills. I still firmly believe, spoiler alert, I believe in the Bills in this game. Everything kind of points to me believing that the Bills should be fine. The Bills can still win games when they're just incapable of stopping a dynamic beast at running back. Like Bijan Robinson, there is no stopping him. And I will happily pay a little bit of money, just be proven wrong on this, mind you. It's just this is a value thing I'm bringing up here. When you get Bijan Robinson 150 all yards, that's receiving and rushing for what it's worth at 3-1. Feels like a good number going up against a team like the Bills, who feel as if, as you're pointing it out, we're talking about, can they finally just do the sound things a run, any sort of run defense needs to be doing. And I love that Oliver's back. I think that's a massive boost. I think, Dorian Williams is going to have a day here. We're probably going to see a healthy dose of Shaq Thompson as well. Terrell Bernard is in there, and just say what it is. I will add this. I don't think we're going to see necessarily the true, like, hey, Terrell Bernard, this is where you kind of suck because of like Derrick Henry. Bijan, as powerful as he is and everything like that, it's not like he's a Derrick Henry linebacker back there. Like, he's still, I mean, if you can get your arms on him, you can tackle him if you're a Terrell Bernard. The problem will be getting your arms on him. But I don't believe that this defense is capable, especially and that is also, mind you, a credit to the offensive line for the Falcons. I think the offensive line, especially the interior three, is a phenomenal group there that will be able to try to keep Bijan clean as much as can and create those holes. They do a lot of fun things as well to create those holes for their running backs. That it is, Bijan will get his yards. This is going to be a test of, you just can't let the Falcons do anything else outside of that. Just make sure you're taking care of the pass game as best as you can. Make sure you're not letting Bijan get to that second level as much as possible, of course, but I'm not going to sit here and act like we're going to be capable of shutting Bijan down to a carry rate of 3 yards per carry. I just feel like that's impossible. Or I'll call it 3 yards per touch, because there will be some stuff where it's like, swing passes out by design to Bijan. That's essentially an extension of the run. Bijan will not be held to 3 yards per touch, 4 yards per touch. Like, Bijan will be a 5+ yards per touch guy, and he is their focal point, cornerstone of the offense. That is inevitable. So from there, it's like the Bills need to at least allow it where they're not, giving up the 60+ yard runs, which I do think is potential, but Bijan's going to chunk you up all night long. Like, Bijan's going to get his. I don't believe that this defense is they're not up to full game speed right now. They're not even showing any sort of life when it comes to run defending and having the capabilities of doing anything to contain it, limit it, whatever you want to call it, to just understand their gaps, understand their assignments, their fits. And even I would honestly say, if there was a betting line for it, I would say Bijan. I'm not going to put Algier in there because he's really just kind of that power punch kind of guy. But Bijan will probably have less than, let's say, 6 carries that will go under 3 yards in this game. I would be confident in saying that. I think, or touches, less than 6 touches that will be 3 yards or less in this game, just because he is just that good of a player. And this offensive line and this run game and how they design things is just, it is good enough to truly take advantage of the deficiencies that are there with this Bills defense. I just don't see the path to success with it at all.
I think when you look at this Falcons offense and you look at the fact that the thing that we're probably most scared of is the running game, it's important to remember something when you're going against a run-heavy team. If Bijan Robinson takes 1st and 10, game starts off, Falcons get the ball, all right? Bills defense takes the field. Hand off to Bijan Robinson, 8-yard run. Every Bills fan is like, "Oh boy, here we go. Here we go. Here we go." Let's rewind. Go back to 1st down, 1st and 10. Michael Penix drops back to pass, throws an 8-yard pass to Drake London. Every Bills fan's like, you're just watching a football game. There's no reaction. It's like, oh, it was an 8-yard pass. Cool. We'll see what happens on 2nd down. There's something about an 8-yard run that feels, different. It's 8 yards. That's what you have to remember when a team is running all over you. Chances are it doesn't quantify to nearly as much as when a team is throwing all over you. When Drake May is rolling around in the backfield, breaking tackles and throwing the ball 40 yards downfield to Stephon Diggs, those are back-breaking plays because it takes a 3rd and long and makes it a 1st and 10 in your own red zone. When Bijan Robinson runs up the middle of your defense, gets tackled by Taylor Rapp for an 8-yard run, it's still just 8 yards, even though it is demoralizing as a fan to watch that happen. And that is the strategy behind what the Bills have built here in Buffalo defensively, for better or worse, is they have built a defense designed to funnel you into running the ball because they don't believe the way their offense is built that a team can just run the ball enough to keep up with them offensively, because the nature of running the ball is at some point you're going to go for a loss. It's hard to sustain drives, and you're not going to keep up with a Josh Allen offense. And to the Bills' credit, they have won a lot more than they have lost under Josh Allen. Two guys on the Bills defense, I think, are very, very pivotal for this game. Really every game, but I think this game in particular, Luka, are Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa. And here's why. The Falcons have an excellent right tackle in Caleb McGarry, but unfortunately he is out. He had a hamstring injury in preseason, and he has not been playing. Otherwise, on their offensive line, they are fairly solid at the four other spots. But I do believe that at right tackle, that is a position that Joey Bosa or Gregory Rousseau have to win their matchup. Michael Penix is not the kind of quarterback that is going to stand back there and take sacks. There was a chart put out this week on Twitter. I can't remember who published it, but it was a great read of teams' sacks and pressures given up, and whose fault they are. And you really saw like the good quarterbacks are the ones that aren't causing sacks and pressures. Michael Penix is the only quarterback in the sport that has been charged for 0% of the pressures against his team, which means he is getting rid of the ball at a perfect time and also maneuvering in the pocket at a good rate. And that's not just because he's like Tua back to a couple years ago, where he gets rid of the ball so quickly that you just can't get to him. Michael Penix ranks 12th in the league at time to throw among 34 quarterbacks. So it is a fairly baseline snap to release from Michael Penix. But I do think that this is a game based on what we saw from Greg Rousseau last week, based on what we believe Joey Bosa is going to bring to the table. The Bills have to win this game on the edges, while I do think that the interior of the defensive line, Oliver, Jones, Walker, are going to have their hands full containing the run. Is there any players on the defense, Luka, that you think are going to be very key in slowing down this Falcons offense?
No, the edge play is absolutely massive for one. I'm when you already have an individual missing from that unit, and then from there that's, as you said, I mean, it is funny being that Penix is a lefty, so you actually have to look at the right tackle, unlike the left. Like it's reverse, right? Like your right tackle is actually as important as your left tackle, and vice versa. Not that a tackle is more so important than the other, but there's a reason that the left tackle is traditionally known as the blindside protector. It's because conventionally most quarterbacks are right-handed. Therefore, their back is to what is going on that edge. That's the whole thought process, if anyone didn't understand that out there. So for the Falcons, if you were not aware, Penix is a lefty. So from there, your right tackle becomes your blindside blocker on the edge. So it is a matchup that I believe is definitely something to keep an eye on for this game, and is absolutely impactful. In the same regard, I feel like if I were to go away from the edges and also just add another one to this, it feels as if the interior defensive line would be a good place. But I'm honestly going to put a little bit of weight on the linebackers. I mean, we talked about how important the run game is and how much of a focal point it is with this offense. And now you have something where Dorian Williams has at least the ability to potentially be more downhill. And I say that as in, you would imagine if they're leaning on the run and stuff like that, Dorian Williams should be in his wheelhouse for this game. Dorian Williams should be comfortable, diagnosing where the hole is and shooting through it, and hopefully trying to limit that run game as best he can. Meet the running backs in the hole. Do not sit back and let them come to you, actually attack those gaps, because you should feel confident enough that is most likely what's going on that play call. So I'm going to put a little bit of like a key area of this game is that linebacker duo. I'll even say that we might see a decent amount of base. I'm not saying it as in like we'll see a 50-50 split or them even lean on it, but I would imagine you're going to see more base than maybe like 2-3 snaps. This feels like a game where you could truly see Bernard in your traditional Mike position, and then you have him, each side of him is Dorian Williams and Shaq Thompson. Like that feels like a serious possibility to me. And then from there, you're bringing Wrap up into the box to potentially, kind of be quote unquote manned up on Pitts a little bit so that he can take care of that assignment and move on with your day. Obviously, it depends on the personnel they're seeing in front of them. If for whatever reason the Falcons are coming out in 11, I would imagine you just go into your comfortable nickel base or nickel form and just do your business. But I do believe the linebackers, and then I will loop in, I'll loop in the nickel in there as well. I'll loop in Taron Johnson, and just that secondary unit of the front seven is going to have a serious task here where they need to do something for us that it feels as if we just talked about they haven't really been able to prove yet. And that is just understanding their run fits and just knowing where they need to be on assignment for whatever run play is coming at them. Because to now, even in that Jets game where they did a great job, it was almost like an overwhelming effort just to do that, because unlike the Falcons, the Jets truly just had no threat in the pass game. I mean, when you start with Justin Fields, I mean, you just dare Justin Fields to throw the ball, like, just period. End of story. You have Garrett Wilson out there. Fine. You have other, it's like, dare Justin Fields to throw the ball. Just dare him. You get performances like you saw again in London today. You get performances like you did see in that Bills game. He's a lost cause essentially at that point. So I do believe just you round out that front seven. You talk about the edges. I'm calling it like the linebackers. They're a huge part of this game. And Dorian Williams specifically is an individual I believe can step up and really needs to step up to show that he at least provides this defense some sort of value in a matchup that feels like it should favor his style a little bit more than it should. Like, he's not going to be asked nearly as much to drop back in coverage as you would see around the league. This feels more of a downhill kind of game for him, where he should hopefully be a little bit more comfortable, every snap.
Let's flip it around. I will say real quick, though, I would not be stunned in the least if Shaq Thompson outsnaps Dorian Williams in this game. I was so unhappy with what I saw from Dorian Williams in the Saints game. Just looked so lost out there. But that's really been the theme for a few guys on defense this season. I think Taylor Rapp is one of the guys that looks like that quite a bit. But Shaq Thompson's a guy that every time he gets on the field, he pops. I would not be surprised if maybe there's a rotation there, but I would expect to see quite a bit of Shaq Thompson in this game. We mentioned some injuries. Let's go over that real quick because we're talking about the Bills defense. TJ Sanders down, DeMar Hamlin down on injured reserve. That means that the Bills probably you know what though? It is Sunday, so they probably would have had to announce this today. Did they announce their call-ups yet? Because I rumor has it that Jordan Poyer is going to be activated for this game and could see the field, but I haven't seen any of the call-ups. I'm guessing that would be more in a reserve role. Bills PR as I looked that up. But at this point, I'm at a point where anything other than no, they didn't do anything today. Maybe it's similar to Thursday Night Football where they don't have to do it until the day of the game. But yeah, I would expect that Jordan Poyer gets called up for this game as a safety reserve, but maybe Jordan Hancock's going to be active for this game. He's been inactive as the season has gone on. And then when I look at this flipped around, Luka, where do you think the Falcons rank in the league in EPA offensively, or I'm sorry, on defensively? I'm going to give you a hint. It's the same for the pass as it is for the run. It blew my mind when I saw it.
EPA ranking, it's same for the pass. It is the run.
Defense.
I look at them as bottom tier. Well, they're not bottom tier. In lifetime, I'd probably put them in the bottom 8. So what was that, 24 to 32?
First.
Get the fuck out of here.
First.
French.
No, you're fine. We can say what we want to. First overall, offensive or defensive EPA. Now, I question EPA, but here's what I'm going to say. I know EPA essentially takes into account quality of opponent, situation, and tries to equalize everything to try to make everything balanced. Okay. But here's the quarterbacks that the Falcons have faced this season. Week 1, they faced Baker Mayfield. That's about as good as it gets in the NFL right now. And Baker did not have a great game. He threw 3 passing touchdowns against them. But if you remember that game, Baker lost Mike Evans very early, and he threw a dart to Ekbuka at the very end of the game to win the game. But he was out there without Godwin, without Evans, Egbuka's first game, and it was basically Baker by himself, which has become a theme this year, and he's doing just fine. Other than that, they dominated the Minnesota Vikings, who were starting J.J. McCarthy.
Mhm.
They got blown out by the Panthers, who were starting Bryce Young. And then in their other game, I just had their schedule up. Who else did the Falcons play?
Mariota.
Oh, Mariota. Yeah, it was the Commanders, and Mariota put up 30 points on them, or
Ranked
27 points.
number one in PFF among all quarterbacks. Fun fact right now.
Woo. So I have a hard time compartmentalizing that when they give up almost 27 points to the Commanders
Yeah.
with Mariota under center.
Yeah.
I start thinking, okay, do they maybe struggle with mobile quarterbacks because that's a Josh Allen thing? All I will say is this. I like a lot of the pieces on the Falcons defense. I think AJ Terrell is one of the best cornerbacks in football. If he played in a New York market or an LA market or on the Dallas Cowboys, I think he would be in the same conversation as guys like Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner. But um, beyond that, they have 4 rookies on this defense. Jesse Bates is also one of the best defensive backs in the sport. He's having, I think, a down year so far, Luka. I mean, by his standards, but still a very high-end player. He would be the best safety on the Bills by like a country mile. But both their edges are first-round picks, but they are pups, and their defensive line is strong. But when you look at it, the Bills' offensive line is the strength of their offense outside of Josh Allen. Given the fact they are first overall in EPA, I still look at this as a very winnable matchup for the Bills. And one stat I noticed about the Falcons is their red zone rate is bottom third in the NFL. They're giving up almost 70% touchdowns once they get to the red zone. And while the Bills have not been great this year, they're 13th in the NFL. They're converting 67% of their trips to touchdowns. We know the strength of this team under Josh Allen historically is when they get to the money zone, they get to the money paint essentially. They make those drives count. That's why they're great. I think as you watch this game, maybe more so than most Bills games, when the Bills get inside the 20, just keep a mental note of did they get 7 or did they get 3? I think that's how it's going to add up at the end for the Bills. Luka, I think this, despite what EPA tells us, is a very winnable matchup for the Bills offensively. Are you less optimistic than me?
No, I'm probably even more optimistic. I'm trying to think where that EPA just has them ranked both first against the run and the pass. I look at this defense and I agree. I like AJ Terrell, maybe not as much as you, but I still do like him a lot as a corner. I respect him as a number 1 corner in this league. Xavier Watts, I mean, love the guy. And I think he's starting his career phenomenally. I think Jesse Bates is still absolutely an individual you need to be aware of, and he's still an impact player-ish. I don't think he's as dominant as he was, back in his Bengals run, but he's still a quality player. The reason I tailed off a little bit with the impact, I'm wondering where the impact players are on this defense. I'm wondering where any of the, even for everything we say about the Bills, right? One, we're gaining Ed Oliver back, instant impact player. You have Joey Bosa, impact player. Greg Rousseau on a day, impact player. Those are 3 guys I would imagine any respectable individual would come out and say impact player. Absolutely can be. When I look at this Falcons defense, whether they're in their base 3-4 or they're coming out in nickel because the Bills are coming out in a lot of 11, I don't know yet. I think your point about the edge players, with Jalon Walker and James Pierce Jr., they're pups, right? They're just still figuring out the league and things like that. You get what you can out of them, but it's not like I'm going to criticize their edge play for not being impact. The interior defensive line is okay. I don't think there's a truly circle, there's no Chris Jones, there's no Ed Oliver, there's no, any other interior defender that it's a circle on the board, need to understand where they are. I think Diablo's having a great season for him so far. I also believe that he's just kind of more of a true coverage linebacker who's athletic and can fill the needs in the run game. But I also just don't believe that let's go down here. I mean, the Commanders, the Vikings, the Buccaneers, they're not playing the strongest run offenses and things like that. I would give the Bills an edge to the teams they've played so far when it comes to the ability to run the ball efficiently. And you have James Cook and the offensive line to go with that. So I just look at the defense and I don't see where the number one EPA ranking is coming from, because ultimately it's like when they're, they're trotting out Leonard Floyd, Jelon Walker, James Pierce, Harrison, Dorius or Dorless, I think is his name. Diablo, like these are just one of 11 kind of deal. Like that's what they are to me. They're a unit, and I think they must be operating at a much higher level than I even imagined. But I trust Josh Allen, James Cook, this offensive line, Dalton Kincaid to figure things out and do it in a fashion that they're comfortable with, I guess is the way to put that. I feel like this is a nice matchup for Joe Brady to kind of, I don't want to say flex his muscle, but like at least dive into the playbook a little bit and get into the things where we can have a good feeling about going into the bye again offensively, because the vibes were 180 degrees different following that Patriots loss. It just felt like it was a stale, lethargic offense moving that ball the entire Sunday night game. The offense was the letdown of that game. So now you're coming up against a defensive unit here that feels like it truly should be able to take advantage of things and get that mojo back leading into the bye to get the vibes back and going for 17 and everyone, on the offensive side of the ball. So I find it interesting. I find it interesting that there's things out there that rate this Falcons defense very high, because I don't see it myself.
One thing I do when I prepare for a Bills opponent is I look for where they're leaky at. And it's very simple. I'll go to Google, I'll go to StatMuse, I'll go to one of these advanced metric sites, and I'll say, okay, let's say the Bills are playing the Chiefs. Where do Chiefs rank in the NFL against slot receivers? And if let's say it's really, really low, I'll be like, oh, this could be a Shakir game. Or where do the Chiefs rank against boundary receivers? And maybe this is a Coleman Palmer game. Where do they rank against like mobile quarterbacks or running back passes or tight end passes? No matter what you look at, the Falcons are ranked statistically in the top 10 of the league against all positions. There's not a weakness on this team. And some of that can be statistically the only real quarterback they've faced that I think is NFL starting caliber is Baker Mayfield. They have faced also JJ McCarthy, Bryce Young, and Marcus Mariota. So that is certainly going to skew the stats. We will learn a lot about these Falcons tomorrow night against Josh Allen, and then when they play Baker Mayfield again, so on and so forth. But there is nothing that stands out eye-poppingly against this. But all in all, do you think, Luka, I know Dalton Kincaid is questionable. He practiced in limited fashion all week. Coming off of a loss, do you think this is one of those situations where if Dalton Kincaid's close, the Bills should put him out there? Or are you still thinking it's October, it's an NFC game? I know the Patriots won yesterday. I know if we lose, we're going to fall to second place in the AFC East, but it's still October 13th. What do you do with someone like Dalton Kincaid, assuming it's a close call?
Assuming it's a close call, I'd probably lean on the side of caution. The most intriguing and enticing reason to do that is honestly the bye week being around the corner. It can't be understated what that can do for recovery, even if you're close. Like that's the same. Milano being out, bye week coming up. You have the Panthers out of the bye. Like it's a nice situation to be in where you can be a little bit more cautious, because after that Panthers game is when you have the Chiefs coming in there, and all of a sudden, you wanted to play it close. You wanted to maybe stretch Kincaid out there a little bit. I think if it's in a risk assessment thing, right? If you believe that the risk of him being out there might be just, tweaking whatever it is, and that could cost him a week or two, that's one thing. If it's, but if tweaking something could cost him serious time, that's where you just have to be overly cautious, honestly, at that point, and be like, hey, we could potentially buy you 2 to 3 more weeks of rest here. And next thing you know, your next game is in a month, where we just keep you in practice, moving around, stuff like that. You're not going to hit IR or anything, but then from there, you're ready to go once the games get going again. And that just simply put, is when the Chiefs come to town. And then shortly after, you have a couple other larger games that could have an impact as to what the playoffs are shaping up as and where you can be in seeding. So in this particular game, this one feels like one that tips the scale a little bit more than not, to just be on the cautious side. Understand that if, let's say, Kincaid's at 80%, it's like you said, potentially could play if you needed him, but really it's like you would like to believe Dawson Knox and Jackson Hawes can fill in where needed in those roles. You can lean on Shakir a little bit more for the quick passing game, things of that nature. It's like, if you can do that, next thing you know, Kincaid, hey, by the way, we just got you 2+ weeks of rest, and now you're good to go for, say he's good to go for the Panthers game to warm up for then the Chiefs game that follows, whatever it is that, it just, the prospect of rest coming up is too much to be a little aggressive with it, especially with how early it is in the season.
All right, Luca, it's about time for us to do some predictions on this game. This is a massive game for the Bills. They're sitting there at 4-1. They want to go into the bye week with good vibes, but they also wanted to go into the bye week with some much needed momentum toward the 1 seed. And look, I know we talked about it on the midweek show, and if you look at the standings, it might be kind of confusing, the teams we isolated. We isolated the Ravens, we isolated the Chiefs, we isolated the Bengals. 7 teams are gonna make the playoffs on the AFC side, no matter how you slice it. But when you look at what makes the AFC such a tough conference to get through, it is those elite quarterbacks. It's Joe Burrow, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Lamar Jackson. Unfortunately for Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, they both got hurt very early this year, and their team's records are suffering largely because of that. For the Ravens, they are 1-5 after today, which means they have to be as close to perfect after their bye week as humanly possible just to make the playoffs. The Bengals fell to 2-4, which isn't as bad, and they did look at least functional on offense today with Joe Flacco. But still, that's a tall ask when Joe Burrow is not projected to come back for almost 2 more months. So you could be looking at a situation with the Chiefs currently losing on Sunday Night Football, but it's 10-6, where the Chiefs are 2 games below 500 and with a tough schedule coming up. The Ravens are 1-5. The Bengals season is tanked because Burrow's out till December, where the elite quarterbacks are just not in your way. And that's where, if the Bills win on Monday night, not only do they stay in first place in the AFC East, but they have that 1 seed within their grasp. I know the Colts are in the way, but come on, are we going to give Daniel Jones that much respect? There's going to be some team with a good record. It's not the Mahomes team right now. It's the Daniel Jones team. That's where we think that maybe Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott decide they need to go for it. But Luca, one other thing I want to talk about very quickly is the Atlanta Falcons on defense. They run man coverage 28.16% of the plays. That's about middle of the pack. We know we saw that a lot with New England. I think we'll see a steady diet of man coverage of Bills opponents going forward, but you better be able to contain Josh Allen in the running game, and we'll see what happens there. Prediction time, Luca. Falcons are 3.5-point underdogs to our Buffalo Bills. The Bills are trying to avoid a 2-game losing streak. They're trying to go into their bye with a record of 5-1. The Falcons are coming off of a bye. What happens tomorrow night on Monday Night Football when the Bills travel to Atlanta?
Tomorrow night, playing the early Monday night game, the Bills are going to go into this, and as I put it, I believe they're going to be trying to get their swagger back a little bit. They're going to be trying to show that last week, kind of what we've seen early on in the season, the offense isn't that much of a pain. And there is ability here. And oh, by the way, 17 is still there under center. And they have an opportunity in front of them. That said, I do believe that this has shootout potential written all over it. Feels like, games in Atlanta, it's a fast track. You can do a lot of things. The vibes will be good. Roof will be open from what it sounds like. I just believe that the Bills are too much for the Falcons, and the Falcons just don't threaten enough in big play potential outside of Bijan that they're not enough of a big boy talent to threaten the Bills. And at the end of the day, the Bills should be able to get that last drive to seal the deal, whether it's by a score and or just seeing out the clock in a, somewhat close-ish game. I basically have this game being a 31-23 kind of win for the Bills. I just think that's a nice sweet spot for this game overall. It might not be the most comfortable affair and everything like that. Bijan will get his. I talked about it and I believe it. I refuse to believe that there's anyone in this league, though, that can truly do anything to Bijan to a great extent. So you're just going to have to accept, Bills fans. Just Bijan will get his. But if Bijan's getting his, guess what? No one else is really doing a whole heck of a lot to you. And when push comes to shove and the Falcons need to make a big play in the pass game, that's where they will ultimately fall short. And that's where the Bills can at least control this enough with their own run game, plus having the pass game that comes with being Josh Allen under center. So, yeah, 31-23 is kind of where I put this game. That's what I believe the Bills will be winning by come tomorrow night.
I'm not getting the shootout vibe, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm not getting there with it for some reason. I think there's a chance that the Bills could lean on James Cook in this game, and it could be a running game. I'm getting an ugly win for the Bills kind of vibe where they win, we go into the bye week, but we're still kind of sitting there like for 2 weeks, really wondering what we have. I'm gonna give the Bills a different kind of win this time. I'm gonna give them a win where they win 23-13. And boy, I know 13 is an alarming number against the Falcons. But one advantage I know the Bills have on this team is special teams. The Falcons already lost their kicker, Koo. He had been shaky as it was, and the guy that's come in to replace them, Parker Romo, he's good. He had a good start to his season when he came in against Minnesota and kicked well, but since then he's fallen off a little bit. I could see a situation where the Falcons miss a couple kicks. I just think that the Bills are a more buttoned up team than this Falcons. This is a maturity spot for the Bills. We talked about the fact they're starting 4 rookies on defense. I think the Bills are a veteran team. They've been there. This is not going to be too big of a spot for them. The Falcons are going to be amped up. Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, is coming to town. This is a big spot for them. For the Bills, this is just week 5. This is week 6. This is just everything that they do is all leading to January. It's ramping up for January. This is a team that's been there and done that. I think this is going to be a maturity win for the Bills. I do think it's going to be a lot of James Cook. I do hope Dalton Kincaid plays, not only because I love the fact that he does seem to be kind of evolving into Josh Allen's go-to weapon, but also because I just think that opens up the rest of the offense, particularly if teams are going to play man coverage on the Bills. They don't really have an answer for Dalton Kincaid, and he has become that matchup nightmare where if you want to put a cornerback on him, the Bills have no problem running the ball down your throat. I also just, for some reason, and I know this is being recorded, so holy cow, I could feel dumb for saying this. I feel good about the Bills defense in this matchup. I don't know if it's because Ed Oliver's coming back. I don't know if it's because I was really, really encouraged by what I saw from Greg Rousseau last week, or if it's really just as simple as I don't believe the Falcons have enough weapons on the perimeter to really expose the Tre'Davious White weakness in this defense. Because I don't believe for a second the Bills are going to allow Drake London to go one-on-one with Tre'Davious White. If they do, I take back everything I said, and I'll be calling for somebody's job. If Tre'Davious White is one-on-one with Drake London for anything more than like 3 plays in this entire game, that is a catastrophic mistake. But I don't think this is a team built to expose the current weaknesses in the Bills defense. So I do like the Bills' chances here of getting a win, getting to the bye. I'm going to take the Bills 23-13, kind of an ugly win. I think we'll see some special teams mishaps by the Falcons, maybe a couple missed field goals, and the Bills come out of this game with a win, and we're all just kind of like, a win's a win. Let's move, and we can fight for 2 weeks about whether it was pretty enough. But hey, 5-1, we'd all sign up for that as long as there's no more serious injuries. All right. What's next for us? Well, I normally do a halftime show, but because this game is so uniquely timed, I am doing something unique for myself tomorrow. I'm going to go out and watch this game. I'm going to actually go to the local Buffalo Wild Wings, which I know if you're listening in Buffalo, it's an eye roll. I'm not going for the wings, people. I'm just going for the ambiance, as they say. But I'm going with some family. I got a bunch of family around here that are converted Bills fans because of me. My nephew's in town, and we all just want to get together and watch the Bills game, and we're going to have some fun with it. So I will not be on for the halftime show. Luka and I, are we going to do a live show this week, Luka, or are we going to wait till next week since it's the bye week? What, TBD? TBD on the, well, you know what? Podcast schedule, everything updated Tuesday morning. We'll update it all Tuesday morning as far as how we're going to approach the bye week and all that stuff. But Luka, any final thoughts before we get out of here? Anything you've seen from the Chiefs tonight that makes you think they're back? Anything you've seen from anything around the league you want to talk about, or Just final thoughts in general.
The Falcons might finally be cooked.
The Falcons?
Baker, or sorry, Falcons. The Ravens might finally be cooked. The Baker Mayfield, bet your MVP. If you don't hold that ticket now, he will be your MVP. It makes me so proud, honestly, and happy just because I'm a big Baker fan, have been for a very long time, going back to college. I just think it's awesome. Like everything about that. The Chargers are just hilarious. I'm just gonna put that in the space out there. And somehow the Cardinals are better with Jacoby Brissett under center than Kyler Murray. There's also that going on. But the Chiefs are kind of, as we're watching this year, big loss for the Lions for what it's worth. Brian Branch can barely walk right now. That's a massive hole for what feels like the best team right now in the league. The Lions feel that vibe right now. Once again, after a weird week 1 where they got absolutely smashed by Micah Parsons and the Packers, they've really self-corrected and have ever since looked like the best team in the NFL. But overall, that could be something to monitor. And the Chiefs just, I don't know. There's something about the Chiefs that just feels off yet again tonight. And part of that is just they're playing a very good team in the Lions, but another part of it is even on offense, it's taking a lot of Andy Reid gimmicks and trickery and double reverse pass play that has Mahomes running because nothing's open downfield as it is, as you did it as a 1 route post with Travis Kelce running a 5-yard hitch because that's all he can do. It's the Chiefs are appearing to be having a very difficult road to make the postseason. Although at the same time, I'm going to say this, feels like the Chiefs might still win the division. I'm just going to also say that there's something about it that I can't get that out of my head. I watched this game. I watched the Chargers. I watched the Broncos, and the Raiders are irrelevant. Geno Smith can't stop throwing interceptions. The Chiefs, if you can get them at plus money, people, just another betting one, not putting it out there. I'm not a betting advisor. 6-0 on my last 2 weeks on Lucas Locke, still undefeated in my 2-unit plays. The Chiefs, if you can get them at plus money to win the AFC West, probably sounded betting device to maybe take a flyer on to hold that ticket because inevitably it feels like that will be happening.
I'm not sure what to do with the Broncos. I think they're good, but today they looked awful in a winning effort against the Jets. But then again, you and I have said time and time again, take these international games with like the Thursday night grain of salt times a million because of jet lag, because of teams just disinterest. They could have been overlooking the Jets. Maybe they're partying wherever they were today. Were they in London today? Yeah. So here's something for you before we get out of here. You mentioned Baker Mayfield. Summer Brain is my new obsession. It's summersports.com/summer brain. It's AI generated football stats. I pulled a lot of stats while we were on the air today, just quickly going in there, putting in a chat thing like, hey, where do the Falcons rank offensive BPA versus the rest of the league versus the Bills defense, etc. And it just generates an answer in 30 seconds. As Luka was talking about Baker Mayfield MVP, I thought to myself, wow, imagine 3 quarterbacks from the same draft class winning MVP. Lamar Jackson twice, Josh Allen, and then Baker Mayfield. I don't know if that would have ever been done before. And I was thinking, did Dan Marino ever win MVP? I know Jim Kelly never won MVP. Thurman Thomas did. So I went to Summer Brain and said, did 3 players from the same draft class ever win MVP? Based on current web sources, as of today, actually, as of October 13th, 2025. Okay, Summer Brain, I see you. You're in the future. There is no record of 3 players from the same draft class, each winning the award. And it does mention the that some draft classes had multiple Hall of Famers like Peyton Manning, Randy Moss. And then there was the one that had Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and Ben Roethlisberger, but none of them won MVP. So interesting. It has really become a quarterback award in the last couple decades, say for one Adrian Peterson year, but that would be cool. Like if it's not going to be Josh Allen, I am 100% rooting for Baker Mayfield because I loved that draft class for everything it was, for how it turned around the Bills' future. I would love to see that for Baker. I love the fact that Saquon is still balling. That draft class he's not having a great year, but he won Offensive Player of the Year last year. That draft class has just been amazing. And then imagine being a Jets and a Browns fan where you got your quarterbacks and then you didn't. Oh,
beautiful.
boy.
Beautiful, beautiful. You will still be a bad organization no matter what. And that's coming from a Bills fan who had 17 years of nothingness, a void of failure, which also, last note too, we're going on tangents here. Watching Steelers Browns, Josh, CBS put up a very interesting stat. It was talking about best records, winning percentages off of the bye since the year 2007. And it was basically showing, I believe, the only teams, it only showed 4 teams, and they were all of a winning percentage over 70%. Steelers and Mike Tomlin being one of those. And I believe that's why they chose 2007, because of course that's when Tomlin started. The Bills were in there. And I thought that was just so funny, because 2007, as we know, was still kind of early in that playoff drought.
Oh, that's 10 years before McDermott shows up.
Right. It's not early. It's dead in the middle, basically, for the most part, all intents and purposes. But since 2007, the Bills were actually a very good team after the bye. Now, there was a lot of 7-9 years in there and things like that. So it's not like they were just the Browns getting multiple years of first overall picks and just being absolute dog shit. But at the same time, I just saw that, and I even said it in a family room, and my one buddy goes, really? Since 2007, the Bills are above 70% off of the bye? And it's like, yeah, and it's, we know McDermott's stat off of a bye on top of it, but that goes well before McDermott, and yet they were still winning a lot of games before the bye. Just also depressing in the fact that we had pretty much a guaranteed win after the bye, even in bad years, and still couldn't make anything of it. That's just a fun little tidbit I saw today that really randomly jogged the old brain here.
2007. Shout out to Dick Duran, Chan Gailey, Doug Marrone, Rex Ryan, maybe not Anthony Lynn, but yeah, shout out to those guys for
at least could win one after the bye.
Yeah, you did it. You did it. All right, Luka. Speaking of did it, we did a show. Good for us. Shout out to us. And hopefully next time we talk to you all, we're talking about a 5-1 Bills team, first place, with a Chiefs team coming off of a loss to the Lions. Exciting time to be a Bills fan. I do predict, and I know you do too, I do predict the Bills are going to make a move at this trade deadline. I think it's a matter of what position, but a name I threw out there this week was Cam Taylor-Britt. There's rumors in the league about Tariq Woolen being available. I think Brandon Beane is going to do something to improve this roster. I would predict it's on the defensive side of the football. We don't know if another injury pops up, what that could spark, but I would not be surprised even if the Bills took a player like Ray Davis and trade him to a running back needy team for maybe a player that they're getting tired of on defense, something like that. Just I think the Bills are going to have action at this trade deadline. And I wouldn't be surprised also if they traded Curtis Samuel as a way to free up some cap relief to a bad team that has cap space, that's willing to basically take a pick from the Bills for the Bills to buy essentially a draft pick, while the Bills can get some much needed cap space to make other moves. Things to get excited about. But for now, we'll be excited about this Falcons game coming up. Go Bills. For Luka, I am Josh McCarty. We will talk to you next time on Bills Chat.